Good morning, everyone. Jim Clark here at the Synchronicity Sanctuary in Central Virginia to share another contemplative focus with you today. And the focus I wanted to focus on today is the polarized field of human experience, OM or AUM, however you wish to pronounce it. So, in the experience of being human, we're constantly acting out our illusory identification with our ego, with our physical form and the presence of thoughts and emotions. The laws that govern this experience are contained in the ancient word for the primary creative vibration of consciousness, which is AUM, however you wish to pronounce it. A represents the positive polarity, U represents the negative polarity, and M is the vibration created by the constant oscillation of the two polarities. It denotes the essential nature of consciousness as vibratory energy within relative experience. And that's exactly what and who we are. We are a vibratory energy within relative experience. Our egos exist only because of that vibration. And our physical form could not maintain itself outside of that because outside of the relative field of experience, there's no experience. There's no positive and negative polarities. It's just all unity. It's all one. So no experience as we know experience anyway. And so this essential vibratory energy that we are is pretending to be the ego. It's pretending to be the form that exists because of this vibration, this oscillation between the positive polarity and negative polarity. And we are so immersed in this identification because it's a very strong identification. It's just not because we're wanting to be that way. We don't know anything else until we do. At this level of creation, illusion is a dominant by default because the pull of that in terms of our identification with it is so huge that it will take a lot of energy to break free of it and to open up to something other than that. So most people don't until they're ready to do this, and this is what is meant by the creation game, where you experience yourself as ego until you're ready to experience yourself as the truth of who you are, as a consciousness, the vibrating consciousness that you are. And in this evolutionary context, we journey ourselves as ego very intensely for many, many, many lifetimes. And then when we're fulfilled in that experience, which simply means that we've had enough of that experience and we start to desire something more than that, when we realize that there is nothing fulfilling from anything outside of ourselves. That's essentially what we come to realize. And then we start to look in a different direction. We go in instead of out to see if we can find something there. And this is by virtue of all the experience that we have accumulated over lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. And when we do begin this journey of going in, this is where we began to meditate. This is where teachers show up. This is where our lives take a different turn. I know in my experience, my life took a radical turn, about when I was in my mid-30s. Up to that point, I had no idea of anything spiritual. I mean, I knew concepts about it. I knew religious beliefs, but I did not have any experience to validate that there was more to life than my ego, my body, my thoughts, my emotions, my relationships, my interests, etc., etc. And yet, my life was very mundane, and I kind of settled into acceptance of that as being the be all and end all of life. It was comfortable. I mean, I was comfortable within my narrow framework of experience, as most people get, because it's not so fulfilling, but it's an experience that you get to know and you become familiar with it. So repeating that experience in various ways is considered to be a normal life. You know? And something outside of that lifestyle interrupts it or shakes it up, like we're seeing in the world today, where there is so much going on, so much fragmentation and conflict going on that many people's lives are being upset radically because of the conflicts they're having with people that are close to them in their same country or in neighboring countries, etc., etc. And this is where people start to look. This is the kind of experience that the world generates when something new is about to come in, something more universal, something more accepting, something more loving. Because those who are ready for that experience will be open to the experiences and the changes that are coming. Those who are not ready for that experience will not stay in the world simply because they're not ready to move on. They need to come back into this kind of an experience, the human experience, where their journey can continue where it is supposed to continue for them. And I'm sure that anyone listening here, if you are a spiritually oriented person, which you would be if you're watching, you've been through many, many lifetimes and had this experience yourself, where you were reaching a point and the world was coming to a certain level of fragmentation and you just simply had to check out because that was it for you. You needed to come back and start over again and pick up where you were here and now. So this is a continuing experience, a human experience within the relative field of experience. And without that, without the negative and positive polarity and the oscillation between the two, we couldn't have this human experience. I would not be here speaking to you. I wouldn't be here at all. You wouldn't be there listening or watching. So this experience being what it is limited to the relative field of the polarity, the polarized field of experience. And unless you are inclined to develop and nurture a spiritual experience, unless it is time for you to wake up to that truth, that you are much more than the body and the thoughts and the emotions. Unless you're ready for that, that experience will not happen for you. People will not come into your life to teach you or to guide you in that direction. But if you're watching this, they have. And if you're watching this, most likely you are on your way to waking up more and more and more. At least that was my experience. I was totally in the dark as far as spiritual experience goes until my mid-30s when I had an awakening experience. And I didn't cause the experience, at least not from the ego. This experience came to me suddenly and radically, and after that my life was completely different. It totally changed directions, and what was a comfortable lifestyle before was an uncomfortable lifestyle that I simply could not go back to, because that would say, oh no, I don't want this, which is not true, because the blissful experience that I had in that awakening was so much more than I'd ever had when I was locked into my ego and trying to find some form of pleasure and satisfaction from things or people outside of myself. It fulfilled what nothing else could, to put it simply. And once you have that experience, you want to continue that experience. You want to have that all the time, because in truth, that's your true nature. Your true nature is fulfilling all the time. It's always loving, it's always accepting, and it's always perfectly content with the blissful being that it is. And in order for you to have that experience and to have that experience constantly, requires that you develop the power of the positive polarity, which is not the default dominant polarity in the human experience. It simply isn't. And so you have to build your own power to break through that initially and to have more breakthroughs beyond the negative polarity until you can create your own truthful presence. And once you get that presence happening, which is simply a vibratory energy, which is you vibrating, huh? And once you get that presence, and once that presence is established so that it is constant, maybe not hugely so, but it's constant within your own awareness 24/7, then that becomes your meditation. You don't need words, you have that vibration, and you can focus on that vibration, and you can do meditation to help amplify that vibratory experience until it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And as it becomes stronger, you break away from your ego, you let go of your ego. And as you do that, you become more and more powerful in the positive polarity experience, which is, wow, I am source, I am consciousness, I am. And that's all there is to it. I'm not this ego, but I am within the human experience. I am consciousness itself, having a human experience. And when you're coming from that perspective, that experiential perspective, then there's nothing that can replace that. There's nothing nearly as powerful. Any belief system will not do, even if it's a belief system in regard to meditation, because the belief itself is just a mental concept. The actual experience of yourself as consciousness, that is what you're after, and that is what you want. And when you get the taste of that, that's nothing else will do. And you will be moved to have more of that and have that as your constant experience until you actually manage to create that in that way. And this is essentially what my life has been. And the people that I live with here at the sanctuary, it's the same thing for them. Even though it's challenging, even though at times it's physically challenging or emotionally challenging or mentally challenging, uh, this evolutionary process, what we call a spiritual evolution, it's not an easy road, and it can be very hard on a body, as mine was. But it varies between people and whatnot in terms of where you have to journey your journey, where you have to find and release the negative data that you're still identified with. In my case, a lot of it was physical because, for whatever reason, because of my history, because of my evolutionary process, just happened to be in that way a lot. So I went through a lot of physical changes in my life here that I did never had before I came here, and that was my way of evolving myself within this context. It wasn't the only way I evolved, but it was kind of a dominant theme in my experience where I cleared a lot of negative data through that. And so Om or Aum, however you want to pronounce it, is a representative sound that reminds us of, harkens back to the initial creative energy that came out of consciousness, pure consciousness, to create this relative field of experience where we can have the human experience. And it is still happening. It's like the sunshine. It's happening. It's been happening for billions of years. And it's still happening. So from a human perspective, this is an enormous amount of time. And the sun just shines on the earth. It doesn't seem to care who you are or what's going on or what's happening on the earth. It just shines on it because it's the life source for the human experience on this planet. Without the sun, we couldn't exist here as a human being. And indeed, feeds the plants. It feeds our. Without it, we wouldn't have our food. Simply wouldn't exist here. At least not in this form, anyway. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. The polarized field of experience, AUM, the creative energy that created the positive and negative polarities, and the space between the polarities, the oscillation between the two polarities. In that oscillation, there is a space, and in that space is where witness consciousness happens. And when we balance our polarities, we begin to open up that space between these two polarities as they're oscillating. And we become more and more aware of the polarities as the same consciousness. And this is what happens as we continue our journey to get more blissful and more loving and more truthful in our day to day, moment to moment experience. What more could anybody ever want? So that's what I wanted to share with you today, and I thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again next Monday to share another contemplative focus with you. Thank you for watching.